You won't believe what happened when Ronda Rousey's 8-year-old son was humiliated and kicked out of a shopping mall in downtown Los Angeles. What this former UFC champion did next will leave you speechless and change how you see justice forever. The afternoon sun blazed mercilessly over the concrete of Century City Mall as Ronda Rousey walked hand in hand with her son, Marcus. The boy's eyes sparkled with excitement as they approached the new gaming store that had just opened. For Ronda, this was more than just a shopping trip. It was a rare moment of normalcy in a life that had been anything but ordinary. Marcus pressed his face against the glass window, watching other kids his age testing the latest video games inside. His small hands left foggy prints on the surface as he pointed excitedly at a racing game setup. "Mom, can we go in? Please?" Marcus asked, tugging at Ronda's jacket sleeve. Ronda smiled, remembering her own childhood dreams. "Of course, buddy. But remember what we talked about, we look with our eyes, not our hands, unless we're buying something." As they entered the store, the electronic sounds and flashing lights created an almost magical atmosphere for Marcus. Other children were scattered throughout the space, some with their parents, others in small groups. The store manager, a tall man in his 40s named Derek Patterson, watched from behind the counter with sharp, calculating eyes. Marcus approached a demo station where a flight simulator was set up. His movements were careful and respectful, just as his mother had taught him. He waited patiently for his turn, watching as an older boy finished his game. "Excuse me," Marcus said politely to the boy who had just finished. "Is it my turn now?" The older boy looked him up and down dismissively. "Yeah, whatever, kid." Marcus climbed onto the chair and began playing, his face lighting up with pure joy. His laughter was infectious, and even some of the other kids stopped to watch his enthusiasm. For 15 minutes, he was just a regular 8-year-old having the time of his life. Ronda watched from a distance, her heart swelling with pride. These moments of childhood innocence were precious to her, especially knowing how quickly they could be stolen away. She had learned that lesson the hard way in her own life. That's when Derek Patterson approached, his expression stern and unwelcoming. "Excuse me," he said loudly, his voice cutting through the ambient noise of the store. "Your son needs to get off that machine right now." Ronda looked up, confused. "I'm sorry, is there a problem?" "He's been waiting patiently and playing appropriately." Derek's voice grew louder, drawing the attention of other customers. "The problem is that this equipment is expensive, and some kids just don't know how to handle it properly. I've seen his type before." The words hit Ronda like a physical blow. She felt her jaw clench, a familiar fire beginning to burn in her chest. "His type? What exactly do you mean by that?" "Look, lady, I don't want any trouble. But kids like him, they get too excited, too rough. This isn't the place for that kind of energy." Marcus, still sitting at the game station, looked back and forth between his mother and the store manager, confusion and hurt beginning to cloud his previously joyful expression. "Sir," Ronda said, her voice controlled but with an edge that anyone who knew her would recognize as dangerous. "My son has been nothing but respectful and careful. He waited his turn and has been playing appropriately." Derek crossed his arms, his stance becoming more aggressive. "I'm the manager here, and I decide who can and can't use this equipment. I'm asking you both to leave. Now." The store fell silent. Other parents and children stopped what they were doing to watch the confrontation unfold. Marcus slowly climbed down from the chair, his eyes beginning to fill with tears. "But Mom, I didn't do anything wrong," he whispered, his voice breaking. Ronda knelt down to her son's level, her hands gently cupping his face. "You didn't do anything wrong, baby." "Nothing at all." She stood up, her full height now imposing as she faced Derek. "We'll leave. But this conversation isn't over." As they walked toward the exit, Ronda could hear whispers from other customers. Some seemed supportive, others appeared uncomfortable with the entire situation. Marcus held tightly to his mother's hand, his small frame shaking slightly. "Why did he make us leave, Mom?" Marcus asked as they reached the mall corridor. Ronda stopped walking and knelt down again, looking directly into her son's eyes. "Sometimes, honey, people make unfair decisions based on things that have nothing to do with who you really are. But that doesn't mean we accept it quietly. What are you going to do?" Ronda's expression hardened with determination. I'm going to make sure this never happens to you or any other child again." That evening, Ronda sat in her home office, her laptop open and her phone beside her. She had spent hours researching Derek Patterson and the store's parent company. What she discovered made her blood boil even more. This wasn't the first incident. Online reviews and social media posts revealed a pattern of discriminatory behavior, particularly toward children from minority families. Parents had complained, but their voices had been ignored or dismissed. Ronda picked up her phone and dialed a number she hadn't called in months. "Sarah, it's Ronda. I need your help with something, and it's important." Sarah Chen had been Ronda's publicist during her fighting career and remained a close friend. Her voice immediately showed concern. "What's going on?" "My son was discriminated against today, and I have reason to believe it's part of a larger pattern. I want to expose this, but I want to do it right. Tell me everything." For the next hour, Ronda detailed the incident and her research findings. Sarah listened intently, occasionally asking clarifying questions. "Ronda, this is serious. If what you're saying is true, this could be a significant story, but we need to be careful about how we approach it. I don't want this to be about me being a celebrity," Ronda said firmly. "This is about protecting kids and holding people accountable for their actions." "I understand. Give me 24 hours to make some calls and put together a strategy." The next morning, Ronda received a call that would change everything. "Ronda, it's Sarah. I've been in touch with investigative journalist Maria Rodriguez from Channel 7 News. She's been working on a story about discrimination in retail establishments, and your incident fits perfectly into her investigation." "What does that mean?" "It means we're not just dealing with one isolated incident. Maria has been collecting testimonies from families across the city who have experienced similar treatment. Your story could be the catalyst that brings this whole issue to light." Ronda felt a surge of both anger and determination. "What do we need to do?" "Maria wants to meet with you and Marcus this afternoon. She'll interview you both, and then she wants to do an undercover investigation at the store. Marcus doesn't have to be involved if he doesn't want to." "Actually," Sarah said carefully, "he's asked to be part of it. Maria spoke with him briefly yesterday, and he said he wants to help other kids who might go through the same thing." Ronda felt her heart swell with pride. Even at 8 years old, her son was showing the kind of courage and compassion that she had always hoped to instill in him. That afternoon, Maria Rodriguez arrived at Ronda's home with a small camera crew. She was a woman in her early 40s with kind eyes and a professional demeanor that immediately put Marcus at ease. "Marcus," Maria said, sitting across from him in the living room, "can you tell me what happened at the store yesterday?" Marcus looked at his mother, who nodded encouragingly, then back at Maria. "The man said I couldn't play the game anymore, even though I was being good. He said kids like me get too excited and might break things. How did that make you feel?" Marcus thought for a moment. "Sad and confused. I didn't understand what I did wrong. What would you want to say to other kids who might experience something similar?" Marcus straightened up, his voice becoming stronger. "I would tell them that they didn't do anything wrong either, and that there are people who will help them." Maria then turned to Ronda. "As a mother, how did this incident affect you?" "It broke my heart," Ronda said simply. "No child should ever be made to feel unwelcome or unwanted because of someone else's prejudices. But it also made me realize that if this happened to us with all the resources and platform I have, how many other families are experiencing this without any recourse? What do you hope to accomplish by speaking out?" "I want accountability. I want policies changed. And I want every parent to know that their child's dignity is worth fighting for." The interview continued for another hour, with Maria asking detailed questions about the incident and Ronda's research into the store's history. By the end, they had a compelling foundation for the story. "The next step," Maria explained, "is the undercover investigation. We're going to send in families of different backgrounds to see if we can document the discriminatory behavior." "When will this air?" Ronda asked. "We're planning for next week. This will be a multi-part series, and your story will be the centerpiece of the first episode." As Maria and her crew packed up their equipment, Marcus approached his mother. "Mom, do you think this will really help other kids?" Ronda pulled him into a hug. "I think it's going to help a lot of people, sweetheart. Sometimes when we stand up for what's right, it creates ripples that go far beyond what we can see." Over the next few days, Maria's team conducted their undercover investigation. Hidden cameras captured multiple instances of discriminatory behavior at the store, not just from Derek Patterson but from other employees as well. The pattern was clear and undeniable. Meanwhile, Ronda used her social media platform to begin raising awareness about discrimination in retail spaces, careful not to reveal the specifics of the upcoming news story. Her posts generated thousands of comments from parents sharing their own experiences. The night before the story was set to air, Ronda received an unexpected phone call. "Ms. Rousey, this is James Mitchell, Corporate Counsel for Pinnacle Retail Group. I understand you've made some serious allegations against one of our stores." Ronda's voice was steady. "I've shared my family's experience, which is documented and factual. We'd like to offer you a settlement to resolve this matter quietly. We're prepared to make a substantial financial offer." "Mr. Mitchell, this was never about money. This is about ensuring that no other child experiences what my son did. I understand your position, but surely we can reach an accommodation that benefits everyone. The only accommodation I'm interested in is real change in your company's policies and training procedures." There was a long pause. "Ms. Rousey, I hope you understand the potential consequences of pursuing this publicly." Ronda felt the familiar fire in her chest. "Mr. Mitchell, I hope you understand that threatening me is probably the worst strategy you could have chosen." She hung up the phone and immediately called Maria Rodriguez. "They just tried to buy my silence and then threatened me when I refused," Ronda told her. "That actually strengthens our story," Maria replied. "It shows they know there's a problem and they're more interested in covering it up than fixing it." The next evening, Channel 7 News aired the first part of their investigative series. The story began with Ronda and Marcus's interview, then showed the hidden camera footage from the undercover investigation. The evidence was damning and undeniable. Within hours, the story had gone viral. Social media exploded with support for Ronda and Marcus, and hundreds of other families began sharing their own experiences with discrimination in retail establishments. Derek Patterson was fired within 24 hours of the story airing. The store's parent company issued a public apology and announced a comprehensive review of their policies and training procedures. But Ronda wasn't satisfied with just one store or one company making changes. She spent the following weeks meeting with civil rights organizations, retail industry leaders, and local government officials. Her goal was to create lasting, systemic change that would protect all families from discrimination. 3 months later, Ronda stood before the Los Angeles City Council as they voted to pass new anti-discrimination ordinances for retail establishments. Marcus sat in the front row, wearing his best shirt and tie, watching his mother advocate for change. "This ordinance isn't just about shopping," Ronda told the council. "It's about dignity. It's about ensuring that every child in this city knows they belong and are welcome in public spaces." The ordinance passed unanimously. After the vote, as they walked down the steps of City Hall, Marcus looked up at his mother. "Mom, did we really change things?" Ronda smiled, thinking about all the emails and messages they had received from families who had been helped by their story. "We started something important, buddy. And sometimes that's the most powerful thing you can do." As they reached the bottom of the steps, a young mother approached them with her son, who appeared to be about Marcus's age. "Excuse me," the woman said, her voice emotional. "I just wanted to thank you. Last week my son was treated unfairly at a store, and because of your story, the manager immediately corrected the situation and apologized. Your courage gave us a voice." Marcus stepped forward and extended his hand to the other boy. "Hi, I'm Marcus. Want to be friends?" The boy smiled and shook his hand. "I'm David. I saw you on TV. You're really brave." "We both are," Marcus replied. "And now we don't have to be brave alone." Ronda watched the interaction with tears in her eyes. This was what real victory looked like. Not just policy changes or corporate apologies, but children who felt empowered and protected. That evening, as they drove home through the streets of Los Angeles, Marcus asked, "What happens next, Mom?" Ronda considered the question carefully. "Next, we keep fighting for what's right. We keep standing up for people who need someone in their corner. And we remember that sometimes the smallest acts of courage can create the biggest changes. Will you teach me how to fight like you do?" Rhonda laughed. I'm already teaching you, sweetheart. Every day. As they pulled into their driveway, Rhonda reflected on the journey that had brought them to this moment. What had started as a simple shopping trip had become a catalyst for meaningful change. But more importantly, it had shown her son that his voice mattered, and that standing up for what's right was always worth the fight. The story didn't end there. In the months that followed, Rhonda established a foundation dedicated to combating discrimination against children in public spaces. Marcus became one of its youngest advocates, speaking at schools and community events about the importance of treating everyone with respect and dignity. The mall incident had been painful, but it had also revealed something powerful about the capacity for ordinary people to create extraordinary change when they refuse to accept injustice quietly. If this story moved you and you believe in standing up for what's right, hit that subscribe button and join our community of people who refuse to stay silent in the face of injustice. Drop a comment below sharing your own experiences or thoughts about discrimination. Your voice matters and could help someone else feel less alone. And don't forget to smash that like button to help us reach more people with stories that inspire real change. Years later, when Marcus was older, he would look back on that day at the mall not as a moment of humiliation, but as the beginning of his understanding that courage isn't about being unafraid. It's about doing what's right even when you are afraid. And he would remember that sometimes the most important battles are fought not in arenas or octagons, but in the everyday moments when we choose to stand up for dignity and justice. The ripple effects of their story continued to spread, inspiring other families to speak out, other companies to examine their practices, and other communities to pass similar protective ordinances. What had started with one mother's refusal to accept her child's mistreatment had become a movement that touched thousands of lives. And in the end, that's what real strength looks like. Not the ability to defeat opponents in physical combat, but the courage to fight for a world where every child can walk into any space and know they belong. This is just the beginning of stories that matter. If you want to see more content that highlights real courage and inspires positive change, subscribe now and be part of a community that believes in making the world better one story at a time. Hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. And remember, your engagement helps these important stories reach the people who need to hear them most. Together, we can amplify voices that deserve to be heard. The foundation Rhonda established, called Every Child Belongs, quickly gained momentum across the country. Within 6 months, they had documented over 300 cases of retail discrimination against children, and Marcus had become an unexpected symbol of resilience for kids everywhere. On a crisp October morning, Rhonda received a call that would test everything they had built. Mrs. Rousey, this is Detective Lisa Martinez with the LAPD. We need to speak with you about some threats that have been made against you and your son. Rhonda's blood ran cold. What kind of threats? We'd prefer to discuss this in person. Can you come to the station this afternoon? After dropping Marcus at school, Rhonda drove to the police station with a growing sense of unease. Detective Martinez, a woman in her early 50s with graying hair and tired eyes, led her to a small conference room. Mrs. Rousey, we've been monitoring some online activity related to your foundation's work. There's a group that's been organizing against what they call social justice overreach, and your name has come up frequently in their discussions. Detective Martinez slid a folder across the table. Inside were printed screenshots of forum posts and social media messages. The language was vile, filled with personal attacks against Rhonda and disturbing references to Marcus. How serious is this? Rhonda asked, her voice steady despite the fear building in her chest. Serious enough that we're recommending increased security measures. These aren't just angry comments. Some of these individuals have histories of escalating from online harassment to real-world actions. Rhonda closed the folder, her mind racing. What does this mean for my son, for the foundation's work? That's up to you. We can provide protection, but we can't guarantee your safety if you continue with high-profile activities. That evening, Rhonda sat Marcus down for one of the most difficult conversations of her life. Buddy, we need to talk about some grown-up stuff that's happening. Marcus looked up from his homework, immediately sensing the seriousness in his mother's tone. Are we in trouble? Not trouble exactly. But there are some people who don't like the work we're doing with the foundation. They're saying mean things about us online. What kind of mean things? Rhonda chose her words carefully. They don't think kids should have the same rights as adults to be treated fairly in stores and other places. And they're angry that we're trying to change things. Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Are they going to hurt us? The directness of the question hit Rhonda like a physical blow. I don't know, sweetheart. The police are helping us stay safe, but I wanted you to know what was happening. Do we have to stop helping other kids? Rhonda looked at her son, this brave, compassionate 8-year-old who had already shown more courage than most adults, and felt her resolve strengthen. What do you think we should do? Marcus thought carefully before answering. I think if we stop, then those mean people win, and then other kids won't get help. It might be dangerous. Mom, you taught me that doing the right thing is sometimes scary, but that doesn't mean we don't do it. Rhonda pulled him into a hug, overwhelmed by pride and fear in equal measure. Okay, but we're going to be extra careful, and we're going to have some security people helping us. The next few weeks were tense. Rhonda hired private security, and Marcus had to adjust to having a bodyguard escort him to and from school. The foundation's work continued, but under heightened scrutiny and protection. Then, on a Thursday afternoon, everything changed. Rhonda was in a meeting with potential foundation donors when her phone buzzed with an emergency alert from Marcus's school. Her heart stopped as she read the message. Lockdown in progress. All students and staff safe. Police on scene. She excused herself from the meeting and called the school immediately. Mrs. Rousey, this is Principal Johnson. Marcus is safe, but there was an incident. A man tried to enter the school claiming he needed to deliver a message to your son. Our security protocols worked and he was stopped before gaining entry. Rhonda's hands shook as she gripped the phone. Where is Marcus now? He's in my office with Officer Rodriguez. The man has been arrested, but we thought you should come immediately. Rhonda arrived at the school to find Marcus sitting calmly in the principal's office, coloring in a book while a police officer stood nearby. When he saw his mother, he ran to her. Mom, I wasn't scared, he said, though she could feel him trembling slightly in her arms. Officer Rodriguez approached them. Mrs. Rousey, the individual who attempted to enter the school is known to us. He's been posting increasingly aggressive content about your family online. This appears to be an escalation. What happens now? He's been arrested and will face charges for attempted trespassing and making terroristic threats. But Mrs. Rousey, I have to ask, is this foundation work worth putting your family at risk? Before Rhonda could answer, Marcus spoke up. Officer Rodriguez, can I ask you something? The officer knelt down to Marcus's level. Of course. Do you think bad people should be allowed to scare good people into not helping other people? Officer Rodriguez was quiet for a moment, clearly moved by the question. No, son. I don't think they should. Then we can't let them win, right? The officer looked at Rhonda, then back at Marcus. You're a brave kid, but bravery and safety have to work together. That night, Rhonda made a decision that would define the next phase of their journey. She called an emergency meeting with her foundation board and key supporters. I want to be transparent with all of you, she began, addressing the group gathered in her living room. My family is facing serious threats because of this work. I have to consider whether continuing puts my son at unacceptable risk. Board member Dr. Patricia Williams, a child psychologist who had been instrumental in developing the foundation's programs, spoke first. Rhonda, no one would blame you for stepping back. You've already accomplished more than anyone could have expected. But, added Maria Rodriguez, who had become a close ally since breaking the original story, if you stop now, it sends a message that intimidation works. And that puts every other family trying to fight discrimination at risk. Marcus, who had been quietly listening from the stairs, appeared in the doorway. Can I say something? All eyes turned to him as he walked into the room with the serious expression he wore when he was thinking deeply about something important. I know some of you think I'm too young to understand what's happening, but I do understand. There are people who want to hurt us because we're helping other kids. And I know that's scary. He paused, looking around the room at the adults who had become his extended family through this work. But yesterday at school, a girl named Emma told me that because of our foundation, her family got an apology from a store that was mean to them. And last week, a boy named Tyler said his mom felt brave enough to speak up when someone was unfair to him because she saw our story on TV. Marcus's voice grew stronger as he continued. If we stop now, Emma and Tyler and all the other kids won't have anyone fighting for them, and the mean people will think they can scare anyone who tries to help. He looked directly at his mother. Mom, you taught me that being brave doesn't mean you're not scared. It means you do the right thing even when you are scared. I'm scared too, but I think we should keep helping kids. The room was silent for a long moment. Finally, Dr. Williams spoke, her voice thick with emotion. I think we just heard from our youngest board member, and he makes a compelling case. Maria Rodriguez nodded. Marcus is right. If we let intimidation tactics work, we're essentially abandoning every family that doesn't have the resources or platform to fight back. Rhonda looked around the room, seeing determination replace uncertainty in the faces of her supporters. Then we continue, but we do it smarter and safer. Over the next month, the foundation implemented new security protocols while expanding their reach. They partnered with law enforcement agencies to develop training programs for retail workers, worked with school districts to create anti-discrimination curricula, and established a legal fund to help families who couldn't afford to fight discrimination cases on their own. The threats didn't disappear, but they became more manageable as law enforcement took a more aggressive stance against online harassment, and the foundation's security measures proved effective. Marcus continued to be involved in the foundation's work, but always with appropriate protection and age-appropriate responsibilities. He spoke at community events, participated in educational videos, and became a powerful voice for children's rights. One afternoon, as they were leaving a community center where Marcus had just spoken to a group of local families, a teenage girl approached them. "Excuse me, are you Marcus?" she asked shyly. "Yes," Marcus replied, with the confidence he had developed through months of public speaking. "I'm Sarah. I'm 16 now, but when I was 8, something like what happened to you happened to me at a restaurant. My mom didn't know what to do, and we just left and never went back." She paused, gathering her courage. "But when I saw your story, it made me realize that what happened to me wasn't okay. And it inspired me to start a club at my high school where we talk about discrimination and how to stand up against it." Marcus smiled broadly. "That's really cool, Sarah. Are you helping other kids?" "Yeah, we are. And it's because you showed us that even kids can make a difference." As they walked to their car, Rhonda reflected on how much had changed since that day at the mall. What had started as a painful incident had grown into a movement that was touching lives across the country. "Mom," Marcus said as they drove home, "do you think we're really making a difference?" Rhonda thought about Sarah, about Emma and Tyler, about the hundreds of families who had reached out to share their stories and thank them for their courage. "I think we're proving that when people stand together for what's right, they can change the world," she replied. "One story, one family, one brave decision at a time." That evening, as Rhonda tucked Marcus into bed, he asked a question that had been on his mind for weeks. "Mom, when I grow up, will I still want to help people like this?" Rhonda smiled, thinking about the compassionate, courageous young man her son was becoming. "I think once you've seen how much good you can do in the world, it becomes part of who you are. But whatever you choose to do when you grow up, I know you'll do it with kindness and courage. Will you still help people too? As long as there are people who need help and as long as I'm able to give it." Marcus was quiet for a moment, then said, "I'm glad that mean man at the store made us leave that day." Rhonda was surprised. "Why?" "Because if he hadn't been mean to us, we never would have started helping all these other kids. Sometimes bad things happen so good things can happen later." As Rhonda turned off the light and closed Marcus's door, she marveled at the wisdom of her 8-year-old son. He was right. That painful day at the mall had been the catalyst for something beautiful and important. The foundation continued to grow. The threats eventually diminished as law enforcement cracked down on the harassment, and Marcus grew into a confident young advocate who understood that his voice mattered and his actions could create real change. But perhaps most importantly, they had proven that ordinary people facing extraordinary challenges could choose courage over fear, action over silence, and hope over despair. And in doing so, they had created ripples of positive change that would continue long after their story ended. You've just witnessed the power of refusing to back down when faced with intimidation and threats. If you believe that standing up for what's right is worth the risk, show your support by subscribing to our channel and joining a community that celebrates real courage. Share this story with someone who needs to hear that their voice matters. And let us know in the comments about a time when you had to choose between safety and doing what's right. Don't forget to hit that like button to help us reach more people with stories that inspire positive change. Because together, we can prove that courage is contagious and justice is worth fighting for.